Tonight, if you're awake again because of money, because of that familiar tightness in your chest, because of the numbers quietly marching through your head, because of that quiet fear, what if I can't keep up? What if I lose what I have? And if I lose it, what does that make me? You don't have to fix anything right now. Just lie down. Let your body be heavy on the bed. If you want, you can close your eyes and just listen. This is not a video about getting rich. It's not financial advice. It's a soft conversation for those sleepless hours, when money feels less like a tool and more like a shadow following you into the night. Sometimes, what keeps us awake is not the bills themselves, but what we believe they say about us, about our worth, about our place in this world. Tonight, we're not going to run away from that fear. We're going to sit beside it, gently, and look at it together. Not to judge you, not to blame you, but to ask a different kind of question. What if my life, my value, my freedom could no longer be measured only in money? If that feels too big, that's okay. You don't have to answer anything. You only need to be here, breathing, listening. Let these words keep you company for a while. As we step slowly into this question, like stepping into a quiet forest at night. 3 a.m. I am lying still on the bed, but inside, nothing is still. Everything around me is dark, except for the blue glow of the phone screen shining onto the ceiling. The banking app is still open. I've checked it at least 5 times tonight, even though I know no new miracle will appear. In my mind, it's not dreams. It's a spreadsheet. Rent, loans, school fees, old debt, unfinished projects. If this month's salary is deducted, how much is left to breathe? My body is exhausted, my eyes burning, my head heavy, but my brain keeps running like a machine with no off button. You know that feeling, don't you? Pretending to be normal all day, only to reveal at night how powerless you really are in front of money. And in nights like these, there is an image that keeps coming back into my mind. So vivid, it feels like a scene from a film. The man walking slowly through a city running for money. I imagine myself standing in a bustling city where everyone is rushing, competing, showing off talent, status, achievements. People brushing past each other, phones in hand, Bluetooth in their ears, talking about deals, stocks, KPIs. In that crowd, there is one man who walks very slowly. No phone in his hand, no Bluetooth calls, no tight, strained eyes of someone who is sleep-deprived because of deadlines and money. He is dressed simply, no luxury brands, but not shabby. Looking at him, I can't tell if he's rich or poor. I only feel one thing clearly. He looks free. Around him is a sea of people rushing. One rushing to a meeting, one checking their stocks, one adjusting their clothes to look more successful, one glancing at how many new likes, how many comments, how many people are paying attention. But he walks as if he does not belong to that race. Because in truth, he isn't running anymore. He isn't rushing. He isn't self-promoting. He isn't trying to rise above. And that is exactly what makes him dangerous. Dangerous not because he harms anyone, but because his existence raises a question that terrifies the whole system. What if someone can live without playing the money game like we do? He is not trapped in the same machine as I am, as you are. He doesn't measure his worth by money, followers, or titles. He doesn't care whether you think he is successful. He isn't interested in climbing some vague ladder that everyone says must be climbed. He lives by his own rhythm, his own values, and in a world designed to make you dependent. The mere fact that he dares to live that way is already an act of rebellion. In a society where everyone runs after money as if money were oxygen, a person who doesn't run becomes a threat, especially to a system that needs you and me to fear money, to lose sleep over money so it can continue functioning. This society isn't built only on money. It's built on our fear of not having money. There is something very few people say out loud, but I feel it deeply every time I stay up all night. This society is not just built on money. It's built on our need for money, on the fear of not having it, on the fear of poverty, the fear of being left behind, the fear of being judged as a failure. Every major industry you touch, from education, advertising, social media to technology, doesn't just sell you a product. They sell you a story that your life only has value if it generates profit, that you must work to the point of exhaustion, otherwise you are labeled lazy, that you must crave more. Otherwise, you are someone with no ambition. Comfort is seen as a weakness. Exhaustion is seen as a badge of honor. If you're losing sleep because of financial pressure, you've probably lived in that story for too long. So have I. Since childhood, we've been taught that success equals money. Your time only has value when someone pays for it. Rest is a sin. Play is childish, unless it also makes money. School doesn't teach us to listen to the fear inside us. They teach obedience. They teach us to chase degrees to earn money later. Then they hand us over to corporations that promise fulfillment, financial freedom, success, but in return, give us deadlines, meetings, debts, and a long-term state of dependency. The harsh truth I realized is this: if you don't desire money, you're not a good consumer. If you're content, you're not good for business. If you're self-sufficient, you're a small glitch in the matrix, and the system hates such glitches. So the moment you stop running the prescribed race, you get labeled lazy, irresponsible, unrealistic, poor. But the more sleepless nights I had, the more I realized those labels are not truth. They're tools of control. They keep you running in circles, chasing novelty, feeling perpetually not enough. And I began to ask myself, what if the man who left the chase isn't lost, but found? What if the person who lives simply isn't a failure, but someone winning by a different rulebook? What if letting go of the obsession with money isn't weakness, but wisdom? Those questions quietly started touching the nights I lost sleep because of money. Erich Fromm and the touch on the deepest fear. Later, when I read Erich Fromm, I felt he articulated what I had only vaguely sensed. He wrote a very simple line: if I am what I have, and if what I have is lost, then who am I? The first time I read it, a chill ran through me, because I understood this. Most of my fear around money isn't just, how do I live without it? But if I don't have these things, who am I then? Fromm also said, real wealth is not having more, but needing less. And he went even further. A truly rich person is not someone who has much, but someone who is no longer ruled by the fear of not having. I sat with that for a long time. Most people, including me, don't chase money because we love it. We chase it because we fear what happens if we don't have it. Fear of judgment, fear of being looked down upon, fear of not being able to care for those we love, fear of becoming a failure. But if someone is not afraid of going broke because they know who they are, regardless of what their bank account says, then that person, in the deepest sense, is the richest. That person is not easily kept awake at night just because the numbers on a screen change. Thoreau, the man who stepped out of the world to understand it, long before our time, long before social media, long before the 24/7 financial market, Henry David Thoreau had already seen this. He stepped away from the noise, from the spinning wheel of expectations, and built a small cabin in the woods near Walden Pond. Not to escape life, but to explore it from a distance that was quiet enough, still enough. People looked at him and called him poor. But in his own way, he was not poor. He had enough. Enough food, enough shelter, enough time to think, to walk, to write, and to be free. Thoreau did not try to beat the system. He simply stepped out of it. From there, he saw something very clearly. The more you need, the more you are owned. The less you need, the harder you are to buy. He warned that modern humans have become slaves, not to chains, but to consumption. We no longer ask who we are. We only ask what we have. We don't seek meaning. We seek upgrades. The breakthrough idea lies here. If you are no longer afraid of poverty, you are no longer easily bought. You are no longer seduced by the glitter, no longer haunted by threats of scarcity. A person unafraid of poverty is the one who can finally choose freedom. And when you begin choosing freedom like that, the sleepless nights because of money start to lose their power. Inside a person no longer controlled by money. I used to ask myself, what goes on inside someone who isn't ruled by money day and night? How do they sleep without checking their balance, without calculating a few more times? And gradually, through observing, reading, and looking at myself, I realized those people don't live to enjoy life in the form of ticking a list. Travel here, buy that, show off this. They live to feel, to be present, to create, to savor. Their joy doesn't come from purchases. It comes from moments, conversations, silences, a walk in nature, a slowly read book, a meal cooked with care. These are values that cannot be taxed, cannot be turned into ads, cannot be placed on a marketplace. They don't need to wear their worth on their bodies. They are their own worth. They don't chase status symbols to prove they matter. They don't need to. They know who they are. And that is enough. They're not afraid of being seen as inferior just because they stopped playing that game. The ability to question, to play, to be curious, without paying with their image, allows them to reclaim the right to enjoy without owning, to belong without buying, to exist without performing. They find joy not in what can be bought, but in what can be experienced. And that makes them deep, quiet, powerful, in a way that is almost untouchable. Because when your happiness no longer depends on the market, the algorithm, or your paycheck, you become the kind of person the modern world has to be careful around. A person difficult to manipulate, difficult to buy, difficult to destroy. So, what does living like that look like? And what does it have to do with sleepless nights over money? The real question is this: how do you escape the grip of money, status, and endless desires? How do you keep living in this world, still paying bills, but stop losing sleep over them? Thinkers like Fromm and Thoreau, in your original text referred to as Zero, gave us a blueprint. And interestingly, it has never been more relevant than it is today. Their core idea is very simple. Freedom doesn't come from having more, but from needing less. Every object you own, every service you depend on, every luxury you cling to, is like a string tied around you. The more strings you accumulate, the more tangled you become, and the easier it is to lose sleep worrying. What if I don't have enough money to keep all of this? Thoreau didn't just write theory. He built a tiny wooden house with his own hands, grew his own food, and lived with the bare essentials. And from that, he discovered a profound truth. When you reduce your needs, you increase your freedom. That is not poverty. That is power. That is not lack. That is wisdom. When you stop chasing a bigger house, a flashier car, a more luxurious wardrobe, you free something far more valuable than money: your time, your energy, your mind. You no longer have to endure jobs you hate just to sustain a lifestyle you don't even enjoy. You can say no without fear. You can walk away without regret, because you have reduced your life to what truly matters and realized that is enough. Thoreau once wrote, "A man is rich in proportion to the number of things he can afford to, let alone." I kept that line in my head for a long time. And the more I lived, the more nights I lay awake. And the more awake I became, the truer it felt. The less you own, the less the world can control you. Minimalism is not owning nothing, but not being owned. When you live with what you truly need, everything you have begins to make sense. And the space you create, both physical and internal, is where your real life finally begins. From the having mode and the being mode. Thoreau shows us how to live simply. Fromm shows us why this matters, especially for those losing sleep over money. He said modern society has hypnotized us, making us believe that having equals being. Cars define status. Salary defines intelligence. Possessions define worth. We have created a culture where you almost don't exist unless someone sees you, likes you, validates you. Fromm reversed that script. He said true fulfillment doesn't come from owning, but from being alive, present, free, connected to yourself in ways that cannot be sold, cannot be liked, cannot be monetized. He called them the having mode and the being mode. In the having mode, you always need more. Always fear losing what you have. Always possessive, anxious, insecure. Your self-worth rises and falls with your paycheck, your appearance, your achievements. In the being mode, you stand firmer. You are enough in a deeper sense. Not because you are perfect, but because you no longer let external things decide your entire value. And those who live in the being mode are almost immune to modern manipulation. Advertisements struggle to fool them. Status symbols don't impress them. Peer pressure has little power over them because their sense of worth doesn't live outside. It lives within. They don't need to own the whole world to feel powerful. They need to understand themselves. That is where their true assets lie. And this is the question I gradually had to face, honestly, through sleepless nights. Am I living to accumulate Oviria or living to become? Do I measure my life by what I own or by who I am when all the noise stops? I realized those who choose being instead of having are no longer slaves. And in this world, that kind of person becomes very dangerous. The problem is not money. It's letting money control us. Here, I'm not blaming money. Money is just a tool. It builds, supports, nourishes, protects. Thanks to money, we can take care of our families, our health, and the essentials. But somewhere along the way, we stopped using money and started serving it. We turned it into a master, into a measure of meaning. And that is exactly when the danger began. Because once your freedom depends entirely on your finances, it is no longer freedom. It is a transaction. If you are losing sleep over money, it's very likely you are in that transactional zone, trading your time, your health, your values, just to keep the cash flow from stopping. Think about how many people, possibly including us, stay silent in meetings to keep their jobs, cling to toxic work environments, accept demands that go against their conscience, not because they want to, but because they are afraid. Afraid of losing income, losing status, losing safety. That is not wealth. That is quiet despair. The paradox lies here. The moment you stop being afraid of losing money is the moment you begin to be free to tell the truth, to live with integrity, and to choose what is right instead of what is merely convenient. When you no longer let your bank account dictate every thought, you begin to dare to ask bigger questions. Does this truly fit with who I really am? Am I building a life I cherish, or just paying to exist? The system wants you to believe that money equals freedom. But through sleepless nights, you will see the opposite more clearly. Breaking free from the obsession with money is freedom. Mastering your own desires is freedom. The right to walk more slowly, the right to say no, the right to live your life your way. That is the real wealth. 4 quiet inner powers that help a person become steadier and lose less sleep over money. After living, observing, reading Fromm, Thoreau, and looking back at myself, I gradually came to believe that there are 4 inner strengths that help a person become freer, not only financially, but also mentally and emotionally. I'm not speaking as an expert. I'm simply speaking from my experience, from someone who once lost sleep over money and is learning to live differently. 1. freedom from artificial desires. We live in a culture designed to make you always feel lacking. Not pretty enough, not rich enough, not high-end enough, not interesting enough. You want to sleep, but in your head there's a voice. I'm not enough. How could I dare show this to anyone? People my age already. The person who pauses to question that voice is already close to freedom. Do I really want this? Or is it just something others told me I should want? Just the act of daring to ask these questions already begins to break the endless consumption loop. The loop that makes you have to earn more, then lose more sleep to keep the things you bought. 2. Independence of values. Most of us live by values we never truly chose. We believe in what our parents believe, what our teachers taught, what society keeps repeating. We rarely sit down and ask, for me, what kind of life is truly worth losing sleep over? And what kind of life is worth sleeping peacefully for? Those who redefine success and happiness on their own terms, based on what truly matters to them, become much harder to sway. When you no longer need approval to feel right, when you know what you stand for, the pressure to conform lessens greatly. And along with it, many nights of tossing and turning out of fear of being judged also ease. 3. The ability to nourish your own emotions. In a world where so many people rely on likes, attention, or constant distractions to feel okay, a person who can sit alone with themselves, enjoy solitude, and feel at peace without external stimulation is someone with a superpower. Their joy doesn't mainly come from material things, but from reflection, creativity, living each moment fully. This inner strength cannot be bought or borrowed. It must be built through many evenings, many breaths, many times of putting the phone down just a bit earlier, many times of allowing yourself to turn down the noise. And that strength is what, little by little, keeps you from being pulled so deeply into the spiral of sleeplessness over money. 4. Social courage. This is what most people avoid facing. The courage to walk your own path, even when others don't understand. The courage to say no to what is expected, turning down a promotion that doesn't fit your soul, declining a high-paying job that destroys your health and your sleep, refusing a lifestyle just to look the part. You may be called weird, lazy, unrealistic, not because you truly are, but because your choices remind them of the compromises they themselves have made. But deep down, everyone respects those who dare to live honestly. And it is that courage, in a very quiet way, that lets you gradually step away from sleepless nights spent protecting your image in the eyes of others. Those 4 strengths: freedom from artificial desire, independence of values, emotional self-mastery, and courage in how you relate to others, form the foundation of a life that cannot be bought, owned, or controlled. In a system built to sell you a version of happiness that is always just out of reach, that kind of freedom is revolutionary. The price to pay, and what no one sees you gaining. I don't want to sugarcoat it. Choosing not to chase money at all costs will make you pay a price, but not in the way people usually warn you about. You will be misunderstood. People will label you lazy, unmotivated, unrealistic, even dangerous. Not because you truly are those things, but because you shake the foundations of what they were taught to cherish from childhood. You will see this in the way people look at you when you say you choose a simpler life. You turn down a great opportunity because it swallows your time and peace. You step out of a race that everyone else insists you must join. They won't understand. And that is okay, because what you gain is something they cannot see and perhaps will not believe. You have more time. Not just a few free hours, but the feeling that time belongs to you again. You have more space to think, to breathe, to reconnect with what truly matters. You have more clarity, which only appears when you're no longer torn apart by distraction and the constant need for approval. And most importantly, you have a kind of freedom that money cannot buy and status cannot guarantee. The freedom to live with integrity. The freedom to create without being crushed by "it has to make money." The freedom to tell the truth. The freedom to slow down. Stay awake in the deeper sense without feeling like you're falling behind. That kind of freedom is rare. And because it is rare, it is often misunderstood. Some people will drift away. Some friendships will fade. Even family may worry that you have lost your ambition. But what they don't see is this: you haven't abandoned life. You're finally beginning to live it in your own way. The man who doesn't run after money. And the final question for sleepless nights. Back to the man walking slowly through the city. He is not a poor man. He has a kind of power of his own. He is not lacking in drive. He has simply chosen a different direction. He is not slow. He is walking a path that most people are too afraid to take. He lives by his own compass. He works for meaning, not just for a paycheck. He values time over fame. He values depth over appearance. Because of that, he cannot be easily bought with status, or bribed with comfort, nor easily silenced by fear. He doesn't need the system's approval, because he has found himself. Yes, people will misunderstand him. He will be called unambitious, unrealistic, even dangerous. And in a way, he truly is dangerous. Dangerous to a culture that runs on insecurity. Dangerous to a world that profits from your dissatisfaction. Dangerous to anyone who wants you to stay small, afraid, obedient. But this is not a story about rejection. This is a story about restoration, about reclaiming your soul from a marketplace that tried to sell it, about remembering that freedom does not come from exhaustion and debt, but from living sincerely, simply, fully. The world does not need more sleepless millionaires. It does not need more influencers without peace. It does not need more productivity. The world needs more presence. It needs more people who not only survive the system, but rise above it. So if tonight you are again tossing and turning because of money, maybe you haven't solved every financial equation yet. That's normal. But beneath all those numbers, there is another question waiting for you to dare to look at it. Which parts of my life are things that can be bought and sold, and which parts should never have a price? Who could I become if money were no longer allowed to decide all my choices? The answer may not come right away, but just the fact that you dare to ask is already a very small, very quiet first step, away from the race that has been stealing your sleep for so long. This is how we move from fighting financial stress to living it one sincere breath at a time. And when you're ready, try this with me right now. Place one hand on your heart and gently, just for you, say, "I love myself. I love the people around me." In the next video, we'll dive deeper into the root causes and how to spot the early signs of insomnia in people. If somewhere during this talk, a small part of you paused and listened more closely, if even for a moment you felt a tiny distance between who you are and what you have, then something important has already begun. The questions we opened are not questions you rush to solve. Which parts of my life are things that can be bought and sold, and which parts should never have a price? Who could I become if money were no longer allowed to decide all my choices? You don't need clear answers tonight. In fact, it's better if you don't force them. Just letting these questions exist in you is already a quiet act of freedom. It is you stepping one small step outside the race that has been stealing your sleep. Right now, you are here. You are breathing. You have a body that feels tired, a mind that has tried so hard to protect you, and a heart that is still searching for a truer kind of safety. Let that be enough for tonight. The bills, the plans, the decisions, they belong to tomorrow. Tonight belongs to your nervous system, to your breath, to that deeper part of you that has always been more than a paycheck, more than a title, more than what anyone can buy or take away. If your eyes feel heavy, let them close. If your thoughts come back, let them pass like clouds. You don't have to be productive now. You don't have to solve your life now. You are allowed simply to rest. May your sleep tonight be a little softer, your breathing a little deeper, and your heart a little less afraid. Good night, quiet traveler. The world can wait. For now, just sleep.